Your job here is done. The words cut through the conference call before I had time to mute my mic. No warm-up, no buffer. Just that sentence. Dropped while the largest enterprise client sat on the line. Listening, the CEO didn't look at the screen. He looked at me. A pause followed. Not the awkward kind. The deliberate kind that dares someone to challenge it. My calendar blinked once, then collapsed. The shared dashboard refreshed, and my name slid off the account column like it had never belonged there. Someone at the far end of the table shifted in their chair. I heard it through the room speakers. The client window stayed open. Cameras on. No one spoke. This is part of our realignment. The CEO continued, already turning his laptop so the room could see the new org chart. We're moving to a more scalable model. A new name appeared where mine had been. The replacement was already seated. Hands folded. Laptop open. He nodded too early. Like he'd practiced. I smiled before I could stop myself. Not because I agreed, because the timing was almost perfect. My name is Marianne Calder. I am 52 years old. The thought ran through me as I watched my access disappear line by line. The way it does when something you've been preparing for finally arrives and you realize you're calmer than you expected. The replacement started talking. Buzzwords. Efficiency. Continuity. He used my phrases without the pauses that made them work. I noticed he never once said the client's name. The CEO leaned back, satisfied. Silence, to him, meant compliance. On the screen, the client's general counsel adjusted his glasses. The head of procurement folded her arms. No one interrupted. No one objected. That silence pressed harder than shouting ever could. Another click. My email permissions vanished. The shared drive locked. The CEO didn't look back. He didn't have to. The system was doing the work for him. For clarity, this is a fictional story created by our writing team, inspired by real corporate dynamics and imagined consequences, told for narrative purposes only. The meeting wrapped itself up fast after that. Action items assigned. Next steps scheduled. My name never came up again. I closed my notebook and stood. The replacement avoided my eyes. The CEO was already smiling at the screen, thanking the client for their time. The client disconnected last. Why didn't they say a single word? My phone stayed quiet all the way to the lobby. That wasn't normal. Not because I expected comfort, but because the people who mattered never stayed quiet when something changed without warning. At the security desk, the guard glanced at my badge and then at me. Still working here. His voice dipped on the last word. For a few more minutes, I didn't slow down. Outside, an email hit my screen. HR, no name, just a department address. You are required to return all company property by end of day. A separation meeting has been scheduled. No greeting, no signature. Policy pretending to be procedure. I didn't reply. I opened my calendar instead and found the reminder I'd set a week earlier. Back when the CEO started canceling my one-on-ones and replacing them with alignment check-ins that felt like audits, I'd known something was coming. Not the timing, not the spectacle, just the direction. A week before, I'd sent a routine strategy memo to our 3 biggest clients. Nothing emotional. Renewal cadence, escalation paths, continuity planning. The kind of document no one questions. Except for 3 lines buried in the middle. Continuity requires named accountability. Any material change in personnel must be documented. Ethics and control standards must be preserved without exception. To leadership, it read like boilerplate. To legal teams, it was a spotlight. My phone buzzed again. An email from a client address I only saw during contract negotiations. Subject line received, understood. 2 words, no signature. I sat in my car with both hands on the wheel longer than necessary, waiting for my pulse to slow. Another message followed. This one from a number saved under a first name only. Do not contact us on company channels. We're watching. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Were they protecting me or protecting themselves? I scrolled through my calendar again, past the empty blocks that used to be my days, and landed on the dates that still mattered. Renewal windows, notice periods. Deadlines that turned trust into obligation. An unknown number called. I let it ring twice. On the fourth ring, I answered, Marianne. Don't speak, just listen. I straightened. We heard what happened. The voice said, and we've seen your name used internally. My grip tightened. If they try to sell us continuity with your face on it, the voice continued. We'll call it what it is. A pause. Fraud. The line went dead. Inside that building. They thought I was gone. I opened a new email draft and left the recipient field empty. My fingers hovered. Not because I was unsure, because I wasn't. I called the one person who would tell me the truth. Pick up. I said to voicemail, I need to know what they're doing with my accounts. The first forwarded email landed just after midnight, the kind that only shows up when someone forgets who's still on the list. The subject line was cheerful. Next steps and exciting updates. I waited, counted to 3, then opened it. My language was everywhere. Not copied, clean flattened. Phrases I'd spent years sharpening were stacked together like buzzwords pulled at random. AI-driven trust, automated relationship scaling, streamlined continuity. Continuity tightened my jaw. A reply followed from someone I recognized without needing a name. Short sentences. Legal training. Careful verbs. This assumes Marianne's ongoing oversight. Please clarify authority. The replacement answered almost instantly. Marianne's framework remains fully embedded. He wrote, operational approvals will continue as before. As before. My phone vibrated again. Another forward. Internal. Let's keep Marianne's name on the thread for continuity. No emojis. No explanation. Just instruction. I leaned back. Exhaled slowly. They weren't just filling my chair. They were wearing my face. A new message appeared from a client contact I hadn't spoken to since the call. No greeting. One sentence. He doesn't know our board. I typed a reply. Deleted it. Typed again. Deleted that too. Silence was still the right move. Another email came in. Flagged urgent. The replacement was proposing a change to escalation protocol, one that required my sign-off 2 days earlier. The approval line showed my name. My chest tightened. That wasn't confusion. That was intent. How far would they go to pretend I was still there? The thread kept growing. Questions from clients. Confident assurances from him. My name floating between them like something everyone was pretending not to see. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it ring once. When I answered, the voice didn't waste time. They just told us you approved a scope shift. I didn't. I know. A pause. That's why I'm calling you. The line stayed open. Neither of us rushed to fill it. Inside the company, they were getting louder. Louder language. Bigger promises. Hoping volume could seal the cracks, I opened my laptop, pulled up my archived files, and started checking timestamps. If they were going to use my name, I needed to know exactly where they were leaving fingerprints. The termination notice didn't come to me first. It came as a screenshot. My phone buzzed once, then again. The subject line sat at the top of the image, blunt and unembellished. Notice of termination. Effective immediately, the sender was the contract inbox of our largest account. I stared at the timestamp, then the wording, then the timestamp again, like it might shift if I looked long enough. Another message followed. Legal is freaking out. My contact wrote, CEO thinks it's a bluff. I didn't answer. I zoomed in on the screenshot until the words filled my screen. No emotion. No hedging. Just clean. Professional damage. Pursuant to the business ethics and conduct provisions, we are terminating for material misrepresentation. My stomach dropped not because of the revenue, but because of that word. Misrepresentation. Pointed straight at my name. The phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without speaking. Marianne. The voice was calm. Controlled. This is Aileen. Aileen never called unless the decision was already made. I saw it. I said. I wanted you to hear it from me. A pause. They used your name. My jaw tightened. Tell me exactly how. They told our board you approved scope changes you never signed off on. No softening. They implied you were still directing strategy. Heat rose behind my eyes. Not tears. Anger. Focused. Why ethics, I asked. Why not key person? Because we didn't leave because you left. Her voice sharpened. We left because they humiliated you in front of us, then tried to sell continuity with a lie. The line went quiet. Not disconnected, intentional. Are you prepared to state that I asked? My voice held. My hand didn't. If counsel asks, if they argue, we'll provide the recording, Aileen said. We recorded the call. Of course they did. And don't contact anyone through company channels, she added. They're monitoring, understood. When the call ended, I stayed still, phone in hand, staring at the screenshot like evidence pinned to a board. This wasn't churn. It was a warning shot. I pulled up my notes from that meeting. I didn't need memory. I needed proof. Another email arrived. Not a client. From general counsel. Call me. Now, I opened a new folder and started collecting every thread where my name had been used as leverage. Whatever they were doing behind my name, they were escalating. The announcement didn't come to me directly. It never does when they want control. A screenshot landed from inside company-wide email, subject line trimmed for confidence, retention update, stability achieved. The CEO's tone was upbeat, the kind that pretends relief is proof. Appreciate the team's flexibility. The message read, client confidence remains strong. Another screenshot followed. A calendar invite titled, Celebration Sync. The replacement's name sat at the top, bolded. My phone vibrated again. This time it was a live thread. Still active. Still using my framework language. The replacement was answering questions fast, like speed could replace accuracy. Approvals have been streamlined. He typed, no disruption, no disruption. A new message slid in from legal, not to me to the client group. Emergency amendments executed to ensure continuity. Executed, past tense, final. I felt the old reflex flare, check the attachments, scan the signatures, look for the corner they cut. I opened my laptop and pulled up the tool I'd installed months ago. The one no one questioned because it lived where process lived. The tracker pulsed once, then again. A notification bloomed across my screen. Approval event detected. I clicked. My name appeared in the authorization field. Clean, correct, familiar. The timestamp was wrong. The device ID wasn't mine. I scrolled. Another event. Same signature, same authority, different location. They weren't guessing anymore. They were using me. My hand stayed steady as I exported the logs. I didn't need to think about motive. The act itself told me everything. Forgery isn't loud, it's quiet. It hides in systems designed for trust. What kind of crime leaves a paper trail this clean? Another message arrived from the CEO, finally addressed to me. Short, tight. Let's talk. No greeting. No apology. Before I could respond, a second email hit this one from the replacement. Copied wide. Marianne's framework remains active. He wrote, we're aligned. Aligned. I saved the files, backed them up twice, then watched the tracker pulse again as another approval fired under my name. They thought they'd won because the room was clapping. I closed the laptop and let the silence settle. If they were willing to fake my authority to stabilize their story, they were already past the line where this could end quietly. My phone rang. This time, I answered. The call I answered wasn't angry. That was the first tell. We need to align, the voice said. Clipped and careful, there are approvals tied to your framework. I let the silence stretch until it hurt. On my screen, the tracker pulsed again. Which approvals, I asked. Finally, a breath on the other end. Scope adjustments. Temporary. Temporary didn't explain why my authority token had fired from a city I hadn't been in for years. I opened the log and read it out loud. Date, time, device. The pause on the line deepened with each detail. When I finished, the voice tried again. Systems glitch. I switched tabs and shared my screen without asking. Rows of timestamps stacked neatly. Different IP ranges. Same signature. Mine. Another voice joined. Lower. More practiced. We don't see evidence of misuse. I dragged a single row to the center. That approval happened after my access was revoked. A click. This one too. No one rushed to fill the gap. A message chimed from a client thread. Not a greeting, a correction. We never received your sign-off. It read, "We were told you approved." I forwarded it into the call. If absence can sign documents, what else can it do? The practiced voice returned. Sharper now. You're drawing conclusions. I opened a second file. These are the access logs to the shared drive where my templates live. Another click. Here's the login history since my reassignment. The first voice came back. Strained? Those credentials shouldn't still work. They do, I said. And they're being used to influence active contracts. Someone muttered something off mic. A chair scraped. The practiced voice dropped its calm. Are you threatening us? I closed the share. I'm documenting. A new call pushed through from a client I hadn't heard from since the meeting. I patched it in. We can state, on record, that approvals were represented as yours, the client said. We can also state they were false. The line went very quiet. Send everything. The practiced voice said, trying to regain footing, we'll review. I didn't agree. I ended the call. I packaged the logs, screenshots, timestamps, IP anomalies, client confirmations. I labeled each file once and backed them up twice. Watching was over. Recording was enough. My phone lit up again. This time the number wasn't hidden. I answered. The CEO didn't bother hiding his anger this time. You need to come back. He snapped the moment I answered. No greeting, no pacing, straight to demand. You're contractually obligated to fix this. I let him keep talking. Threats land harder when you don't interrupt them. You walked away from active accounts. He continued. We'll sue if we have to. You know that. I looked at the folder open on my desk. Logs, screenshots, client emails, the kind of paper trail that doesn't care how loud someone gets. I'll come back. I said. Silence hit the line like a dropped plate. As an independent consultant, I added, 24 hours, no extensions. His breath came faster. That's not how this works. It is now. He pushed back. Tried to regain altitude. We're not paying some inflated rate. I named a number high enough to make him stop arguing and start calculating. Then I added one more condition. All prior actions taken in my name are acknowledged in writing. Another pause. Longer this time. Fine, he said at last. Send the contract. I sent it while he was still breathing hard. Short document, clean language, nothing flashy. The kind executives skim because they think urgency protects them. The signature came back faster than I expected. Time-stamped, complete. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I saved it and backed it up twice. They thought they'd bought my labor. What they'd actually signed was a confession. What did they just admit without realizing it? I arrived the next morning as promised. Same building, different badge, consultant access, temporary credentials. Everyone moved differently around me now, too polite. Too careful. The CEO avoided eye contact. The replacement didn't. We need you to stabilize messaging, he said, sliding a laptop toward me. I didn't touch it. I'm here to review, I replied, not to operate. His jaw tightened. Somewhere behind us. A door closed harder than necessary. I opened my folder instead and started checking timestamps. Every minute I stayed, the trap closed a little tighter. The meeting invite hit everyone's calendar at once. Emergency, mandatory, no agenda. I took a seat halfway down the table. The CEO stood instead. He always did when he needed height. You shouldn't be here, he said. Voice clipped. This is an internal matter. I slid my badge across the table. Consultant access, active. I'm here as the owner of the consulting firm currently holding your liability. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone cleared their throat and stopped halfway through. The CEO tried again. We're not doing this. I opened my folder. No speech, just paper. The first page went down. Approval logs, dates and times, aligned in a way that made skimming impossible. That's fabricated, he said too quickly. I placed the next page beside it. device IDs, locations that didn't match mine. The replacement leaned forward. Those are system artifacts. I turned the folder so he could see the client confirmation email. Single sentence? Clean. We were told Marianne approved. She did not. Silence tightened the air. I added the contract he'd signed the day before. The clause highlighted in yellow. Acknowledgement of prior unauthorized actions. Reliance on my identity to maintain client confidence. His jaw worked. He didn't look at it. He didn't need to. Then the key person clause. Not the whole thing. Just the part that mattered. The part that dissolved restrictions and triggered remedies the moment my name was misused after termination. Across the table, legal stopped taking notes. I placed the final document last. Access history to the shared drive. Templates opened. Copied. Deployed. All after my credentials were revoked. If authority can't stop evidence, what does it have left? The CEO stepped back from the table. This is absurd. I closed the folder. It's documented. No one argued. No one moved. The replacement stared at the wood grain like it might offer instructions. A phone buzzed somewhere. Unanswered. I gathered the papers and stood. You should talk to your insurer. That broke something. Not loudly. Just enough. As I walked out, someone finally spoke behind me. Low and urgent. Get finance. I didn't slow down. Finance arrived before legal did. That told me everything. The CFO took the seat across from me. Eyes already tired, a folder slid onto the table between us. Unopened. The CEO stood near the window this time. Hands braced on the sill like the glass might hold him up. We're not insolvent. The CFO started. Let's be clear. I nodded once and opened my own folder. Your revolving credit facility was restructured last quarter. I said, keeping my voice level. The tranche tied to client retention metrics was downgraded after the first termination. The CFO's pen froze midair. I placed a single page in front of him. Not numbers yet. Names. Those notes were sold. I continued. Quietly, through a third party. The CEO turned. Sold to who I slid the assignment agreement forward. Signature block at the bottom. Dated. Clean. The CFO read it twice. The color drained from his face in stages. You're telling us he stopped? Swallowed. You're telling us you own the debt? I'm telling you the entity I control does. I replied, effective immediately. The CEO laughed once. Too sharp. That's not possible. I added the next page. Payment confirmation. Wire received. No symbols. No drama, just completion. The room shifted. Chairs adjusted. Someone at the far end reached for a phone and thought better of it. If this is true, the CFO said, quieter now. You can call the note. At my discretion. Silence pressed down again. Heavier than before. How do companies die without making the news? The CEO finally sat. His mouth opened. Closed, then opened again. The words came out thin. Oh my God, it wasn't fear. Fear panics. This was a realization catching up all at once. I gathered my papers and stood. I'm not here to embarrass you. I'm here to conclude this. The CFO looked up. Eyes searching for a door that wasn't there. What do you want? I met his gaze. You already know. Behind me, someone whispered my name like it might change the math. I walked toward the door, paused just long enough to let it register. I'll expect your counsel's call before end of day. The door closed. The call came from counsel, not the CEO. That alone told me how it would end. We're prepared to resolve. The voice said, careful now. All client exits will be honored. The board has accepted the resignation. I waited. Silence has a way of pulling the rest out. And the note I asked, a breath, then paper shifting, retired in full. Effective today. Good. Clean endings matter. The replacement didn't reach out. The last I saw of him was a calendar cancellation with no explanation. The kind that disappears without making noise. Clients moved quickly once the paperwork landed. Short emails, direct language, no anger, no victory laps. They were done, and they wanted it finished properly. I respected that. An hour later, another call. This time from the CEO. Not loud, not defensive. We misjudged you, he said. We thought you were a cost center. I didn't interrupt. We won't contest, he added. We'll announce my departure quietly. I closed my folder. That's fine. The line stayed open. Nothing else came. When I walked out for the last time, the badge didn't matter anymore. Neither did the building. What mattered had already changed hands. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. They thought I was a cost to cut. In reality, I was the entire asset. Here's the lesson I'm taking with me if your value depends on silence and compliance. It isn't secure. Real value survives scrutiny, records its work, and sets boundaries before they're tested. If you stayed with me through this, thank you. I appreciate you listening, and I'd like to hear what you would have done in my place. Share your thoughts below if you want. And if stories like this help you think more clearly about work, power, and self-respect, stick around. I'll keep telling them.